Good morning, friends. Myself, Manoj Kumar Chedare, Assistant Professor, Hirashugar Institute of Technology, NetSocia. In this module, we people are going to discuss about wired lines, that is Ethernet. In 1985, the Computer Society of the IEEE that has started a project called 802 to set standards as well as to enable the intercommunication among equipments from a variety of manufacturers. The project 802 is a way of specifying the functions of a physical layer as well as the data link layer of a major LAN protocols. And after that, in the year 87, these standards are accepted by ANSI as well as ISO. The IEEE have divided this data link layer into two sub-layers. One is a logical link control, another one is a media access, that is a media access control. And they have defined several physical layer standards for different LAN protocols. Here in this session, we people are going to discuss the data link layer as well as the physical layer functionalities here. Okay, that deals with the 802 project here. These are the IEEE standard for LANs. They have simply divide this data link layer into two sub layers. That is a LLC, that is a logical link control, and media access control. A logical link control that handles a flow control mechanism, framing, as well as a error control mechanism. That project 802. Okay. In this particular project, flow control as well as error control and a part of a framing duty functionalities are collected into one layer that is called as a logical link control. Whereas a framing can be handled in both the layers, that is a LLC as well as the MAC layer here. Framing, the LLC defines a protocol data units. When it comes to framing, this logical link control defines a protocol data unit that is similar to a HDLC. Okay, we have a HDLC frame and 802 project that LLC defines a protocol data unit. Okay, that is a very similar to this HDLC frame here. Here we have this the PDU, that is a logical link control PDU, has a control information that deals with a flow control mechanism as well as the error control mechanism, as well as it adds two additional fields, that is a destination service access point as well as source service access point. These two field defines the upper layer protocols. These two field defines the upper layer protocol at the source side as well as at the destination that uses this LLC. And the remaining functionalities are simply moved to this MAC here. that is a MAC sublayer. Here, why we people are very much interested in this LLC here is, this LLC simply provides this flow control as well as a error control mechanism for the upper layers. These upper layers simply demand these services. Whereas suppose if you are using these LANs in a isolated system, on that case the LLC may be needed to provide this flow control mechanism as well as a error control mechanism to the upper layer protocols. In certain cases, some upper layer protocols not use the services of these ILLCs. When it comes to this media access, we have a defined media access control for Ethernet. We have a defined media access control, that is that 802, the project 802, that defines this different media access control for different networks here. If you are using a token ring, we a set of media access protocols that are defined for a token ring. If you are using a token bus, a set of media access protocol are defined. At the same time, even we people are defining a standards at the physical layer. Ethernet physical standards, token ring physical layer, that are standards for a token ring, as well as a standard for a token bus also. When it comes to this media access control, that we people are very much interested, that includes random access mechanisms, controlled access, as well as a channelization also. For example, we have a FDMA, TDMA, CDMA. When it comes to random access, we have a slotted Aloha, pure Aloha, okay, CSMA, CD mechanism we have. Okay, all these are nothing but the access mechanism. When it comes to the controlled access, we people are having a reservation mechanism. Another one is a polling mechanism we can use, or a token token mechanism we can use. Okay, all these are nothing but how these stations are able to access these channels to send their information. Whereas when it comes to the physical layer, the physical layer is dependent on the implementation and the type of physical media that are used. Okay, this IEEE defines a detailed specification for each of these LAN implementations. Next, we have a standard Ethernet. The original Ethernet was created in 1976 at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, that is a park. Since then, it has gone through 4 generations. We people are going to go through these standards in detail. Ethernet evolution, that Ethernet has gone through 4 generation here. That is the first one, standard Ethernet, fast Ethernet, a gigabit Ethernet, a 10 gigabit Ethernet. The standard Ethernet provides a data rate around up to data rate of 10 Mbps. Fast Ethernet provides a data rate of 100 Mbps. A gigabit Ethernet provides a data rate of 1 Gbps. 10 gigabit Ethernet provides a data rate of 10 Gbps. Yes. We have a MAC sublayer. In that standard Ethernet, that MAC sublayer simply governs all the operations of the access method here. Okay, it also frames the data received from the upper layer and passes it to the bottom layer, that is nothing but the physical layer. If you look at this 802.3 MAC frame format, the first field we have a preamble field that 7 byte long. The next one we have a start frame delimiter, that is a SFD, that is a 1 byte long. The next one we have a destination address, source address. These destination as well as the source address are a 6 byte long. The next one we have the length or a type field, that is a 2 byte long. The next one we have a data or a padding, that is the variable length. We will go through this particular length here. Minimum we need a 46 bytes of information, and a maximum we need a 1500 bytes here, and that is followed by a CRC. Okay. When it comes to the first field, that is a preamble field, that is a 7 byte long field we have. Okay, and that consists the alternating bits of zeros and ones here, zeros and ones, that alerts the receiving system that the system to the coming frame, as well as it enables it to synchronize its timing. Okay, that is input timing here. And this particular pattern also provides some sort of alert as well as a timing pulse here. Whatever the 56 bit pattern we people are using in this case, that allows a station to miss some initial bits here at the beginning of the frame. And this usually this preamble is included or added at the physical layer. It's usually not a part of this particular frame here. The next one we have a start frame delimiter. This field simply consists of flag value, that is a 10101011. This start frame delimiter that indicates that is the beginning of the frame or a start of a frame. Okay, here that once that gives some sort of a alert message to the station that this is the last for a synchronization, and this last 2 bits, that is a 1 1, that indicates that the receiver indicates the receiver that the next field is the destination address here. The next field we have the destination, that the 6 byte long information we have, that simply consists the physical address of a destination station or a station to receive that a packet here. The next one we have a source address, that also have a 6 byte long, that provides the physical address of a source here, or we can say that a source of a frame here. The next one we have a length field or a type field, that defines the type of a field or the length field. Here originally the original Ethernet used this particular field as a type field that defines the upper layer protocol using that MAC frame, whereas IEEE Ethernet IEEE standard use it as a length field to define the number of bytes in the data field. Both we are using both common today here. The next one we have a data field. This data field carries the information that are from the upper layer. We have that information is encapsulated, and that information is received from the upper layer protocol. Here that the minimum length of this data field should and must be a 46 byte, and the maximum length is the 1500 bytes of information. The next field we have that is a CRC. That CRC is simply is used for error detection purpose, and here we people are using that CRC 32 bit 32 here. The next one we have a frame length. the Ethernet has put some sort of a restriction on both the minimum as well as the maximum length of the frame here. The minimum length of the frame here is 512 bits, including all these header fields. Okay, and the maximum length, that is a frame length, is nothing but a 12,144 bits here. Okay, the minimum frame length, that is a 512 bits or a 64 bits. Out of these 64 bits, 18 bit field we people that simply consist the control information like the destination source address, the length or the length of the PDU as well as the CRC. Okay, apart from that, suppose if you subtract this 18 bytes from this 64 bytes, on that case we people are getting the value that is 46 here. That should and must be the minimum data that we need to receive from the upper layer, the minimum. If that value is not a 46, or if we have the data that is less than 46 bytes, on that case we people are using the padding so that we can make it as a 46 bytes of information. The maximum length here, that is restricted to 1500 bytes here. The maximum length of the frame here, that is nothing but 1518 bytes. Okay, and this the 18 bytes are nothing but the header information that consists destination address, source address, the length as well as the PDU. They put some sort of a restriction on this maximum length because the buffer, the memory was very expensive. That is the first case. The second, the reason here is the one station should not monopolize the shared medium or block other station that have data to send here. For that purpose, they have put some sort of a restriction on this the maximum frame length here. Maximum as well as a minimum frame length here. The frame length, that is a minimum, that is 64 bytes. The maximum frame length is nothing but 1518 bytes. The next one we have the addressing, that is how we people are identifying these stations over a Ethernet network. Okay, each station over a Ethernet has its own NIC, that is a network interface card. Okay, usually that resides within a station or a host machine. Okay, that has a 6 byte long addressing scheme. Around 48 bit addressing scheme we people are using so that we can identify these NICs. Most of the time we people are using this hexadecimal notation. Okay, each 8 bit information is separated by a colon here. Here we people are defining 3 different address types, unicast addresses, multicast address, as well as the broadcast address. Here the source address is always the unicast one because the frame is generated by only one station. When it comes to defining the destination addresses, these destination addresses can be a unicast address or a multicast address, or it may be a broadcast address. If the least significant bit of a first byte, if it is 0, on that case we can say that it is a unicast address. If the least significant bit of a first byte, if it is a 1, on that case we can say that it is a multicast address. If all these bits, that are 48 bits, are set to 1s, on that case we can say that it is the broadcast address. The least significant bit of the first byte defines the type of address here. If the bit is a 0, that is the least significant bit is 0 of the first byte. On that case, the address is a unicast, otherwise it is a multicast. And if all the 48 bits are set to ones, on that case, it is a typical case where we can say that it is the broadcast address. The broadcast destination address is a special case of a multicast address in which all bits are set to 1 here. Here we people are going to discuss some of these cases. Here we need to define the type of we have a set of addresses. We need to categorize them whether these addresses are a unicast, a multicast, or a broadcast address here. Here the first case, that is that consists the value that is 4A 30 10 21 10 1A. If you look at the first byte information, that consists of value 4A. Suppose if I represent this A in terms of a binary, on that case we will get a 1010, and the least significant bit here is a 0. On that case we can say that it is a unicast addresses. The next one, when it comes to the second the address, the first byte consists of value 47 here. Suppose if you represent the 7 in terms of a binary, we will get a 0 1 1 1 1 here. That is nothing but the least significant bit is 1 here. For that purpose we can say that it is a multicast address. The next one, the third case, here all these bits are set to ones here. On that case we can say that it is a broadcast address. When it comes to how we people are sending this address information over a line, here we people are sending that information from the least significant bit to a most significant bit. That is, byte by byte transmission takes place. The address is sent from left to right, byte by byte here. For each byte, it is sent right to the left, bit by bit here, as shown in the figure. First I am sending the least significant bit here, that is this 47 can be represented by we can represent this 47 in terms of a decimal number, that is 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1. That is a least significant is sent first here, that is 1 1 1 0 0 0 1 0. That is a byte by byte transmission takes place over the line. When it comes to this CS when it comes to this access method, that is a CSMSCD, this standard Ethernet uses a one persistent mechanism, that is the carrier sensor multiple access, a collision detection. And here we people are having the slot time. In this particular network, the round trip time that is required for a frame to travel from one end to the maximum length of a network to the other, as well as the time needed to send the jam signal, that is called as the slot time. Here the slot time is nothing but a round trip time plus that is a time required to send the jamming sequence or a jamming signal. Here this slot time usually is defined in terms of bits here. That is, it is a time that is required for a station to send 512 bits. That means that the actual slot time that completely depends on the data rate. When it comes to this Ethernet, we have a 10 Mbps of a bandwidth, and we people are getting that a slot time as a 51.2 microsecond here. That is nothing but a 512 divided by 10 Mbps. On that case, we will get a 51.2 microsecond here. Whatever this slot time we people are using, that is not the accidental one here. Okay. If your CSMA CD has to work properly, for that purpose we people are setting this slot time as a 51.2 microsecond here. If you look at this CSMA CD mechanism, we people are this sending as well as receiving the information is a continuous process. Your CSMA has to define whether the transmission is a successful one or it has to detect the collision. Okay, here the CSMA CD mechanism, we people are interested either because the CSMA the station doesn't maintain a copy of information. Suppose once it sends the information and after that a collision occurs, on that case we may not able to retransmit that packet. And before the transmission occurs, suppose if a station detects that collision, we can abort that process and we can retransmit that packet here. And if you look at this particular CS case, why we people are setting this slot time as a 51.2 microsecond. Assume that we people are transmitting a frame with a minimum size, that is hardly we people are sending 512 bits in a single packet. Before a sender transmit all these bits over a line or a channel, we need to detect the collision here. Suppose as we discussed, we people are transmitting hardly 512 bits in this particular case. The sender can send entire packet out, and the signal travels through this particular network, and it reaches the other end of the network here. Suppose in the worst case, if there is another signal that is at the other end, that is the device that is present at another end is sending the signal, on that case the collision, the two signals collide with each other. Here the station should, and the source station has an opportunity so that it can stop a transmission and send a jamming signal, so that it can alert the remaining station about the collision here. And the round trip time plus that time required to send this jamming signal should and must be less than that what we say that a slot time. Here that is a round trip time plus that is a time required to send the jam signal should be less than the time that is needed to transmit these 512 bits over a network here. If you look at the another case where we people are transmitting more than 512 bits in a single frame, on that case Suppose if a station sends out the first 512 bits, and it doesn't hear if it doesn't hear the collision, we can guarantee that the collision doesn't occur over that particular channel, because each and every station hear the first bit from the station here. The reason is that the signal will reach the other end less than the half of the time slot here. All the station follow that CSMA CD mechanism. They senses the channel. They came to know that the channel is busy, and they simply refrain away from the sending the information over that channel. That is the another a case we can say that for that purpose we people are setting the minimum size should and must be a 512 only. The next one we have the time slot, that is what could be the minimum time slot as well as the network length. If you look at the relationship between the slot time as well as the length of the network, that is a collision domain we have. Okay, it is completely dependent on the propagation speed of the signal in that particular medium. Suppose if you are transmitting the information at the rate of, for example, 2 into 10 to the power 8 a meter per second. On that case, we can easily compute the maximum length here. That maximum length is we can given the maximum length of a network, that is nothing but a propagation speed into a time slot by 2 here. Suppose if you are transmitting, if the propagation speed is 2 into 10 to the power 8 meter second, on that case the slot time we have a 51.2 microsecond. On that case, the length of the cable we people are getting here is a 5120 meter. Okay, we need, suppose if you consider all these delays as well as the time required to send this jamming signal, on that case we can say that its size is still restricted or limited to around 2500 meters only. When it comes to physical layer implementation, this standard Ethernet can be implemented in 4 variations. The first one is a 10 base phi, the second one is a 10 base 2, the third one is a 10 base T, and the fourth one is a 10 base F. This first one, that is a 10 base phi, is called as a thick Ethernet or a thick net. The second one is called as a thin net. Okay. In case of the first implementation, that is a 10 base phi or a thick Ethernet or a thin net, that name is completely derived based on the size of a cable. Here this 10 indicates 10 Mbps of a data rate. The base indicates a baseband, that is a digital transmission. The phi indicates the length of the cable, that is restricted to 500 meters. And here we people are using this bus topology, and these stations are connected to this bus by using these taps. And we people are using a separate paths for transmitting the data. Okay, we have a transceiver cable that provides a different paths for a transmitter transmitting the data as well as receiving the data here. And here these stations are connected to this the bus by using some external devices like these transceivers. This transceiver is responsible for transmitting as well as receiving as well as detecting these collisions. Here the transceiver is connected to these stations via this transceiver cables that provide some sort of a separate paths for sending as well as receiving. In the sense the collision can happen over this particular bus only. Here the length is restricted to 500 meters only. Suppose if you want to extend this length, on that case maximum 5 segments we can attach here by using repeaters here. The next one we have a 10/2 that is a thin Ethernet. The 10 defines the 10 Mbps of a data rate. The base indicates the baseband. The 2 indicates the length of the cable, that is nearly equal to 200 meters. Okay, still its length is restricted to 185. Okay, and we simply call this implementation as a thin net or a cheaper net. Here we people are using this backbone cable, and this host are connected to this backbone cable by using this T connectors here. Okay, this backbone cable is a flexible one. Okay, you can move this backbone cable very close to these stations, whereas the transceiver as well as the transceiver are simply implemented over these stations here. Most of the time this the collision simply takes place over this backbone cable only. And when it comes to this implementation, we people are getting these T connections. They are less expensive, as well as the cable is also less expensive. That is these T connectors are cheaper than that taps here. Installation is you can easily install it compared to the previous one, but the length here is restricted to 185. Most of the time suppose if you exceed this length, on that case the signal gets attenuated here. The next one we have a 10/T implementation. In the third implementation, that is a twisted pair Ethernet. The first the 10 indicates 10 Mbps of a data rate. The next one is a baseband transmission. The next one we have the T represents the twisted pair. This 10/T simply uses a physical star topology. That is, we have a central controller, and to this controller these stations are connected here. These stations are connected to this central controller by using 2 pairs of a cable, that is a twisted pair cable here. Here in this case we people are using 2 pairs of a cable that simply provides 2 different paths, one for sending as well as receiving between the station and the hub here. And most of the time the collision can takes place over this hub only. Here we can see that this hub actually replaces this coaxial cable as far as collision is concerned, and the maximum length of the cable is restricted to 100 meters, so that we can minimize the effect of attenuation. Okay. The next one, we have a 10 base IF, that is, we people are using optical fibers for sending as well as receiving here. The first, if you look at this notation, we people are achieving a 10 Mbps of a data rate here. Okay. The next one is the base indicates the baseband, that is a digital data transmission takes place, and the next one is F indicates the fiber, that is a optical fiber we people are using, and here the length is restricted to 2000 meters here. Still, when it comes to this implementation, we people are using the star topology only. When it comes to the encoding mechanism, all these four standard uses the Manchester encoding, that is a line encoding mechanism we people are using. At the source side or at the sender side, the data are simply converted to a digital signal by using this Manchester scheme. At the receiver side, the receiver simply interpret this signal as a Manchester and decode. It can easily decode them into data here. This Manchester encoding is a self-synchronous one that simply provides some sort of a transition at each bit interval. We have we are able to achieve this 10 Mbps of a data rate in this case. If you look at the summary of the standard Ethernet implementation, here we have a characteristic, what is the maximum length and what line coding scheme we people are using. When it comes to thicknet, we people are using a thick coaxial cable, and its length is restricted to 500 meters only, and we people are using the Manchester line encoding mechanism here. When it comes to this Manchester line encoding mechanism is used in all the cases. When it comes to 10 base 2, that is a thin net, or we can say cheaper net, we can say that thin coaxial cable we people are using, but the length of the cable here is restricted to 200 meters here, that is a 185 meters here, that is a very close to 200 meters. In case of a 10 base T, we people are using two unshielded twisted pair cables, one for sending, another one for receiving, and most of the time we people are using this star topology here. And the maximum length, that is restricted to 100 meters here. In case of a 10 base IF, where we people are using optical fiber, the length of the cable can be increased one here, that is, you can use around 2000 meter length of a cable, so that we can transmit as well as receive the information from the central controller to the stations here. The changes in the standard, we have a standard Ethernet, that is a 10 Mbps standard Ethernet has gone through several changes before moving to the higher data rates. These changes actually provide certain idea or open that roads for the evolution of this Ethernet, so that it can become compatible with other higher data rate LANs here. Okay. Here we people are going to discuss the bridge Ethernet, switched Ethernet, full duplex Ethernet. Here, if you look at this particular scenario, that is a bridged Ethernet that can be used to raise the bandwidth. Okay. Here, for example, if you look at this particular scenario where we have a 12 stations without a bridges here. In this case, each station is willing to access this channel so that it can send its data over this channel here. Okay. Each and every host machine is we can say that these stations are in a race, so that they are able to access they are in a race to access this channel to send their information. But because of this CSMA restriction, suppose if one station is sending the data at one particular point in time, on that case, for example, the station uses the capacity of the channel here. Okay. That station uses the entire capacity of a channel so that it can transmit its information. Suppose if you have 2 or more stations, on that case the station can take some sort of slots to transmit their information. For example, in the first slot a station 1 sends, in the next slot a station 2 sends. Suppose if you take the average throughput, on that case the station are the station simply utilizes hardly half of the available bandwidth, we can say that. The capacity is completely shared between these 2 parties. So when it comes to this bridge topology, we can raise the bandwidth here. We can raise the bandwidth here. Okay. Suppose if I divide this particular LAN into 2 segments, that is these 6 nodes share a 10 Mbps of a bandwidth, and the remaining 6 host machines also share the 10 Mbps of a bandwidth. If you compare these 2 approaches here, in the previous case without a bridging, in the worst case each node receives around 10 by 12 Mbps of a bandwidth here. Okay. We have a 10 Mbps of a bandwidth, and each station is going to receive around the 10 by 12 Mbps of a bandwidth here. In this case, these 6 stations are able to receive that bandwidth. That is a 10 by 6, we can say that 10 by 6 Mbps of a bandwidth is shared. That is each station is going to share here. That much amount of a bandwidth each station is going to have here. Usually we treat this bridge as another station. That is nothing but we can say that 10 by 7 Mbps of a bandwidth each host machine is going to share in this case. Instead of creating only 2 segments, suppose if I create the number of segments here, on that case even we people are going to increase that bandwidth. The number of a host machine they are in a race to access this channel is also reduced here. Okay. In this case hardly 3 host machines are contending to access this channel. The same case with the other domain also, as well as the bandwidth, that is the amount of a bandwidth they are going to use to transmit their data is higher compared to the previous one. In that case we can say that 10 by 3 Mbps of a bandwidth these stations are going to receive, even in the worst case. Okay, even in the worst case here. Another advantage what we people are getting here, that is using or separating these collision domains. Here is we can easily reduce the number of collisions, okay, or we can say that a probability of a collision, we can say that. Okay, without a bridge, these 12 stations are contained. Okay, they are in a race to access this channel here. Whereas in case of a bridged LAN, we can say that hardly these 3 stations are in a race to access this channel here. Okay, on that case, we can easily say that we are able to reduce the number of collisions. That is a probability. Probability of collisions can be reduced here. If you look at this bridged Ethernet, that provides some other ideas to the developers here. Instead of using n bit or a n port bridge, can we use a multiple port a switching device, so that we can simply create n separate collision domains here. Here, instead of using this bridge, we can use a switch here. Okay, instead of using a bridge, here we people are using a switch that works at a layer 2. Okay, that has a we can say that it's a sophisticated device that allows a faster handling of packets, as well as here this switch simply creates n separate collision domains here. On that case, whatever the bandwidth that is shared among these 2 stations, that can be completely increased here. Okay, here this station and a switch simply share a bandwidth of 5 Mbps here, and these are collisions that the collision domain is completely divided into n separate domains here. The next one, we have a full duplex switched Ethernet. One limitation that are associated with a 10 base 2 or a 10 base 5 here, the communication takes place in a half duplex mode only. That is, we cannot send as well as receive at the same time here. The next the point what we people are thinking here is, can we send as well as receive the data at the same time by providing separate channels here? Even on that case, we people are increasing that the capacity from a 10 Mbps to a 20 Mbps here. 10 Mbps to a 20 Mbps here. If you look at this particular scenario, suppose if you are using 2 separate cables or 2 separate channels for a transmission, one is used for a transmission, another one is used for receiving the frames over Ethernet LAN. On that case, there is no need to use a CSMA CD mechanism. Already we have a separate collision domains. Also we have we people are using separate cables or separate channels for a transmission as well as a receiving, where we people are having a dedicated channels between these stations. On that case, there is no collisions taking place at all over this particular network. On that case, there is no need of using a CSMA CD mechanism. That is how we people are simply reducing the job of a MAC layer here. Another the mechanism that is associated with this standard Ethernet here is, we people are introducing another sub layer between the MAC and the LLC, that is a MAC control layer. The standard Ethernet is designed as the connectionless protocol at the MAC layer. There is no flow control mechanism as well as a error control mechanism, so that you can inform the sender that the frame that arrived at the destination without error here. When a receiver receives the frame, it does not send any kind of a acknowledgement. Either it may be a positive acknowledgement or it may be a negative acknowledgement. Just to provide this flow control as well as a error control mechanism in a full duplex switched Ethernet, we people add another a layer. We simply call that layer as the MAC control, okay, between the media access control and the logical link control here. And by looking at these all these the advances, we people are simply interested to increase the data rate of the fast Ethernet as well as a gigabit Ethernet as well as 10 gigabit Ethernet. These provides simply certain solutions how we can improve this particular standards here. Okay. In the next class, we people are going to discuss about fast Ethernet. Thank you.